I'm going to run 35 marathons by the time I turn 35. Like that's my next thing. I was like, I can't, this whole pro triathlete thing isn't really happening, but I love running. I can always do running. They're much more fiscally reasonable to do. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to write a book about it, because I'm sure that there are other women in my position who feel, lack of a better word, trapped. And I need to choose myself in order to be there for everyone else. And from that point on, I really kind of took on the mantra of we need to be selfish in order to be selfless. And at that moment, I thought I will do everything everyone needs of me, but I have to have my running and I have to have my writing. And so from that, but the cool part was, at that point, I'd been like a 340-ish marathoner, and my times just dropped. They just kept dropping and dropping and dropping because I was running so much. I mean, I ran 15 marathons within 2.5 years.
Guys, we are back for another episode of the Yogi Triathlete podcast. I'm Jess, your host, and I'm here with Coach Beej and our guest today, Taryn Spates. We've been following this amazing lady for quite some time, and today is the day to share her with you all. Taryn is an author, a runner, a writer, a producer, and a triathlete who is crushing the race course on a vegan diet. She claims to live each day to make an impact on tomorrow. And if you're tuned into her blog or IGTV channel, then you know that Taryn is showing up to live her best self with raw honesty and charisma. She is hot off the heels from her crewing experience at Ultraman Canada. Taryn, we are fired up to have you in our home, sipping on some sacred cacao with us. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. The cacao is delicious.
It's delicious, isn't it?
Yes.
And I got her all set up with a little bit of almond milk, some cinnamon, little agave nectar, and this is the ancestral grade. I thought this was the ceremonial grade, but this is actually the good of the goods. It's the ancestral grade cacao, which I was telling Taryn is grown in a cloud forest in the Mayan highlands. So it's a heart opener. So we'll see what happens. It usually takes about a half an hour to hit. So the second half of this show should be really good.
My heart is already cracked open, so it's gonna pour out wide in a half an hour. Get ready, everybody. Stay tuned.
So let's dive in with Ultraman Canada. You were up there crewing with the lovely Kat.
Yes. It was an experience. It was pretty much everything I dreamed it would be, but more. I met Kat it's so weird to think about, actually only about eight months ago, or in February, because I feel like we just connected right away. And in order to do everything a crew member has to do for someone at Ultraman, an athlete, I think you really need to care about that person, because the crew truly is the lifeline for the athletes. And so Kat is one of my teammates. We both coached by Hilary Biscay. And so we did a ton of riding together in February, then went to camp together in April, and just were simpatico right away. And I just thought, and then she asked me to crew for Ultraman, and I was like, sure. Don't really know what I'm saying yes to, but yes, I'm in. And so, luckily her crew, it was her boyfriend, Mark, and her friend Melanie and me, and we just right away got down to business. I mean, luckily Kat came into it extremely prepared. She really had, of course there were things that came up, as they always do, but she was ready to go every single morning and felt pretty good, at night, every night. But for us, it was really just 24 hours a day for 3 solid days, really probably like 4 days. Just getting everything ready, buying everything the days before, checking in. And we all sort of had different roles, and Mark kayaked for her. And then he also was the driver, mainly the driver of our van all 3 days. And then Melanie was in charge of nutrition, and I was in charge of navigation and sort of documenting and sort of keeping things positive, kind of keeping things light. And the days, Kat really held on extremely well, I would say, mentally. It was one of those things where I knew kind of going in with, I'm friends with Mary Knott as well, and I know that Ultraman, of course, can break people down. And I was amazed at how well Kat hung on. And I knew that really a big part of my role was going to be when she did start to kind of feel it, is that I really wanted to be there and kind of pick her up and push her along, but also hold her a bit when she had those rough moments. And that really didn't happen until probably about mile 40 or so of the run on day 3. And she started to crack a little bit and get a little frustrated. But she kept moving. She never stopped. She never walked. And that was so impressive to me. And the interesting part is too, I had this foot issue. I've had this toe problem. And so I went into this event really, as her pacer. She asked me to be her pacer because I have a strong running background. And I didn't know if I could really run. I was like, this is the entire reason why she's asked me to be here, and I don't even know if I can do it. And then I said, but I'll figure it out. It's one day, it's fine. And that entire day, I probably ran like 20 miles with her, off and on, because Melly and I paced together. And it was just incredible. And I was so excited and like I was the happiest runner. So I tried to make sure that, she was running the entire time. So I wanted to also kind of make sure that, my mood balanced hers and because I could take breaks and she couldn't. But she just did incredible. And I just loved being in that role, helping her as much as I could, being a sounding board if she was frustrated. I had no problem with that either. But she really just did an incredible job. And it was neat to.
What does it look like first for someone to crack? Like what was her cracking like at mile 40? And then how did you approach that? Like, how did you feel obligated to pull her out?
We started to get some information. Like the way that the course is it's one way, it's point to point, and it's just this dirt road. It's like a pavement, and then it's dirt for many, many miles, and then it's pavement again. And the dirt part is just basically a fire road, and it just keeps going and going and going and going and going. And we kept getting word from folks that the pavement was coming, and maybe we just had to go a couple more hills, and then we were going to hit it. And she just was like, "Where's the pavement? Where's the pavement?" And she just, her face, just visibly wasn't smiling anymore, and she was frustrated. And I just said, I was like, "Kat, be frustrated. Like that's okay. Like just feel it. Feel everything right now. Like it's completely understandable that you're upset." And she kept calling these people liars. She's like, "You're liars. You're all liars. You're all lying to me. Like, where's the pavement?" And we just said, listen, we just have to keep going. Every step that we make, we're moving in the right direction. I was like, just soak this in, because we both knew this was her last triathlon. And this is someone who'd been competing in triathlon for almost 30 years. And she had and I had seen it with my own eyes, days on end this year, how hard she had worked. And I know what our coach put her through, and she had done so much to get here. And I just said, you've earned this, but just feel it. It's okay to be upset, but just keep going.
So for you, coming into this role of service and having to run, but you've got something questionable in your body, how was it different? Let's say you going into a race for you with a sore foot or a sore toe, as opposed to going into this experience where you're showing up for somebody and you've got this soreness. Like, I guess what I'm asking is, did the accountability shift?
Completely. I think this was, I definitely felt I could have done anything that day. I could have run all day long. I could have run with her into the night. It didn't matter. Like I was slightly in discomfort a little bit, but there was nothing that was going to stop me. And I do think that if I was thinking about myself only, then I would second guess it, and I might hold back a little bit, or kind of feel sorry for myself a little bit more, or think about it more. And this, I was just like, no, this is not it. Today is not about me.
So this is the question I would want to know is how can you translate that back now to your racing? Because I'm assuming that it comes from attachment, right? When we're in our own races, like we're doing it ourselves, we have expectations. When you're in service of others, that sort of falls away and you can sort of rise to the occasion. Let's pull this back to your own race performance. Have you thought about how you can pull that into what you have next upcoming?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. A couple of days prior to the race, Kat and I were talking about how we approach races and how we approach sort of competition and that competitive drive. And she gets very, she's very intense. She gets intense. And And I just said, I was like, honestly, I'm really just so happy when I'm racing. I mean, I feel like when I show up to the day, I am just so happy to be there. And I do think there's a sense of confidence I have a lot of times when I'm racing, that I feel like no one's going to be faster than me. Like, I just feel like I know that I am faster than them, and I'm just going to do what I have to do and power through. And I think that's maybe why I'm not, I don't have that crusher competitive attitude, because I'm just so happy to be there. And now, after having this experience, I just feel like my heart is completely full of joy, because I feel like I see it as such an opportunity, and that our bodies are so powerful and so boundless that just being able to show up for any of it, a training run, any of it, especially a race where you're surrounded by not only like-minded people, but people that show up for you and volunteer for you and hand you things and cheer for you. I mean, it's such an amazing experience to celebrate, that I think, especially from now on out. I mean, I know that I'll get nervous before races and want to do well. And I don't think a true competitor can probably ever, totally put that aside. But I just feel just like a reborn in a sense, I think, in the sport after being a part of that with her and just helping her along the way.
It seems like you walked away with a higher level, or I could even say like more acute level of gratitude. And gratitude is our highest state of receiving. And then you couple that with service, right? So life is just a boomerang. What we throw out, we get back. Okay, that's kind of a simple way to say it. And when we put ourselves in the role of service, when we put ourselves in a role of giving, the universe gives back. So you were receiving in that you weren't consumed by what was going on in your foot. You were focused on Kat's success and showing up for her. I had a similar experience at the Tahoe Rim 100 where I wasn't feeling good going into the race, showed up for my pacing duties, did not feel good. But in my head, I was like, you're 100%, because you can't be anything less than 100%. And it's amazing what the body will do when the focus is not so self-absorbed anymore. So when you're going into a race and you're going in with joy and gratitude, that's a very expansive vibration to be living in as you move in. And then you've got this confidence that nobody's going to be faster than you on the day. Would you say that you're a trainer or a racer?
Good question. I think probably when it comes down to it, I am a racer. Just because I don't shy away from pushing myself to, I think, that level that you need to on the day. But I do enjoy also. I mean, I think that's why I love Ironman training. I love the training. I mean, I love training all day long and all the time. It's interesting you said as far as gratitude, and I do think it's sort of funny how the universe works, because this whole foot deal that I've had, definitely when I'm running, but even just at any point of the day for the past month or so before this race, I had some sort of ache or some sort of feeling in my foot. And the Monday after the race, I didn't really notice it. I didn't really pay attention, but I didn't feel anything. And then that night I was like, my foot doesn't hurt at all. This is really weird. Like, I just ran 20 miles yesterday. It should really hurt today. And then I wrote a note to my coach. I was like, my foot feels okay. I was like, we might be able to make a run for Wisconsin. And that, I think, is just what's so interesting too, is that I feel like, I don't know if that's anything, and that's why, I kept putting out there, Ultraman saved my foot, brought my foot back to life, because I feel like just that experience, maybe, taking myself out of it, and just kind of, or being open to other avenues of trying to help it out and bring it back, really, maybe realize, okay, maybe I can't do it this way, but I'm going to open it up and try to do something else.
Sometimes we need to step away from what it is that we're focusing so much on. The universe is very funny, and it can be a little finicky. Like, we want to have that one-pointed focus. We want to have those goals, and we want to set ourselves up for success in every way possible, right? But if we focus too hard on it and we're like, we have to have it, that's when we need to step back and step away. And so very similar thing happened coming off of that Lake Tahoe. The next day, I felt completely sleep deprived, as I'm sure you were at Ultraman. So no reason why the symptoms would have dissipated, but they did. And perhaps it was because the focus was no longer on the foot. Like, especially when we get these little niggles in our body, we can get so consumed with them. And we would sum that up, like the finesse of that is just doing the work for the sake of the work. So tending to the foot, giving it what it needs, but not spending your whole, what was that? What was that? What was that? What was that? Because we get so consumed with it. Then we move into a place where we're expanding exactly what we don't want. Mm-hmm. So it's a game. That's all it is. This whole life is just a game. And we can get really skillful at how we play it. We can get really skillful. What was a moment at Ultraman that you'll never forget?
Yeah, I think the moment that I'm truly grateful for is the fact that I got to run with Kat the last mile or so into the race. And she was very, very not happy at this point. She was really upset.
Even though she was on the pavement at that point.
Well, it was so funny. I mean, it was honestly hysterical because we kept saying... I can
hear her laughing right now. Can you hear her laughing?
Oh, yeah. And she did say I could say whatever I want, so I'm going to. Because it was hysterical. Like, we were thinking, like, you literally had... Like, it's like you're a mile away, like you're a kilometer. And, of course, everything is kilometers. So we're trying to do, like, the conversions, and I'm not good at math. So... I was like, listen, it's down this road. It's down this road. And then we make a left. And she was like, well, how far down the road? And we had switched. So Melanie was running with her. And then I got out the last bit. And I was like, is it okay if I run with her? Melanie's like, yes. And so I ran with her in. And it was one of these things where I knew that she, at that moment, didn't really realize the magnitude of it. But to me, it was so special to be a part of, the end of that particular race, because it was a humongous undertaking of physical exertion and mental strength, but also the fact that I had known her and I trained with her for many, many hours throughout the year and then gotten to know her. And we had the connection of our coach and what I know that she has put her through, and just to be there in that moment. And I knew how big it was. And I was like, I know she's going to realize this later. She just wants this to be done, but I get it. And I started to cry, and I was like, thank you for inviting me to be a part of this. And she still was, she was like, yeah, but she wasn't really that happy at that moment. And then we finally went around the corner and we ran in and it was over. But that was something that I will truly carry with me for the rest of my life, because I know that, especially as an athlete, and I knew how important this was to her. And I just couldn't even imagine myself in her shoes, like having this be the last race and everything she had done. And she had done so well. I mean, she was so strong the whole time. And I just appreciated it and was inspired by it. And was just like, wow, this is so cool.
Where did you feel even when you're talking about it now, I know you can still feel it. Where do you feel that magnitude, in your body? Where do you feel that?
I feel it really in my chest, in my heart and in my lungs. And just it's truly like a vibrancy, just breathing it in. I mean, it was something where, and the thing is too, and granted, I do think I was on a different plane that day with my legs, because I was just bouncing. I mean, I have not felt that happy as a runner in such a long time. And the whole thing, I was just like, this is just amazing, but definitely from my heart region, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So we were talking before we put the mics on about the gift, right? About how when, we get these curveballs and sometimes they hit us straight in the face, that we can look at them any way we want, but perhaps we could look at them as a gift. And what did Kat give you? What was her gift to you by asking you to be a part of this?
Trust more than anything. Trust in really not even knowing me very well, which I thought was really cool. That, you meet certain people and I think you just instantly connect because you just know that you are very similar. And I think that she saw that in me, and I was just honored that she asked me to be a part of it. And then also, when we did go through those tough moments on the run, when I did try to, I did say some things to try to get her out of it and to try to pep her up. She really reacted well to that. She reacted, she might have just not said anything, and she was like, okay. And then she would kind of keep running. So she never, I knew that she did respect me the whole time. Maybe she was a little upset with me at times, but I know that she was deep down happy, that I was there and that, she could share this with me and that I understood. I think that was the biggest thing, is she knew that I knew how important this was, and that, to share that symbiotic moment, I think was big.
Are you someone, because this is the first time we've met, although you said that we were on the course together in Boulder, on the run course.
Looking at your athletes who've all been on the course
checking
together.
at some point. Yeah. Are you one that needs to have that, that's a gift from Kat, to have trust and faith in you? Are you someone that needs that outside proof to know that you're a legit contender out there, or is this something that you know it deep inside? I mean, we touched upon it when you know you're racing, like you're the fastest out there. But does it come from inside, or do you look for that outside affirmation to know that you're a legit athlete, like you're a solid athlete?
No, I'm definitely intrinsically motivated. I think that's something that, and I believe honestly why that's still, I mean, I'm turning 40 next month. That's why I'm still an athlete, and it's still a huge part of my life, is that pretty much my entire life I've known that I'm a decent athlete, and that I'm good, and I want to do what it takes to be better. And I'll do whatever it takes to be better. But the fact that anybody else pays attention to it, or that I actually do get better, that's a huge bonus. But to me, it's really just like, no, I know that I'm improving. I know that I feel better. And that's plenty.
What do you think right now could make you better?
I think right now, it's interesting. So I touched upon this briefly. My biggest weakness as far as in triathlon is the pool. And that was one thing, talk about a gift, I think. My whole foot issue, I really did have to come to a moment where I was like, maybe I really can't run for a while, but I will put all my time and effort into the pool. And it was a click. And the first time that I actually said it, I said it to my coach. I was like, I really don't think I should be running, but I'm just going to swim like crazy. And that next workout, I had just by acknowledging the fact that it was time for me to really concentrate on the swim, I swam better. And I just felt more powerful. And I think just making that sort of shift alone was a huge step in the right direction. And just kind of letting myself finally, because I'm so down about myself with swimming all the time. Like, I'm just so slow and all this. And the fact is, you improve every day. You just have to keep doing it and keep doing it.
Well, that's the story we tell ourselves. And I can jump on that story too, because I come from a non-swim background, and it's always been a struggle. And once you stop telling yourself that story, or see that that's the story, you start sharing with other people, because everybody else is going to jump on board too. Oh, Taryn, she's awesome. She's got to work on the swim. But once we focus on that and begin to, slowly erase that story that's written in that book there, like you start, or tearing the pages out, like, I'm going to rewrite this story. The same thing is detaching from your run, your go-to. Like, how's that to just, because it sounds like you just flipped it. Like, okay, I'll focus on swimming, which is the greatest thing about triathlon, is that you have all these avenues to pursue when you can't do one thing. Switching gears from, and maybe it was easy for you to detach from the run, knowing that it'll come eventually, but right now is time to focus on swimming. So how is it letting go of the run for a little bit?
That was actually excruciating, to be honest. The run, I come from a family of runners, and ran cross country in high school, ran track. And then when I discovered the marathon when I was 21, just completely changed my life. The part about the marathon I think is so interesting is that I've run a lot of them, and I didn't really start getting good at them until like my 24th. And kept doing it, kept going and going and going. But then I really started to kind of figure it out. Then to have that just stop. Or I thought to myself, oh my gosh, like, all this crazy running I've been doing that I've loved has actually been hurting myself. I've been hurting myself. What I thought was making me faster has actually been making my foot worse. So to come to that realization was really tough. And to know that maybe I don't know when I'll be back, or if I do come back, because initially it was a surgery my doctor suggested, my foot will be different. It'll look different. It'll feel different. That was a big thing to look at and to recognize, because I truly am one of those people where, it is a huge part of my identity. So to look at that and be like, okay, I do need to move away from that though. And luckily I do have other things. Swimming and biking. I also love to lift and just be strong, and writing and producing and being a part of other things. It definitely made me look at all that and open it up and just realize, listen, running has been a huge gift. And if I can run for 10 minutes at some point the rest of my life, I will be thrilled. And anything else is a huge bonus.
So who are you if you're not a runner?
I would say when I think about myself, I'm a positive person. And I just think that's one thing that I want to be above all at all times in any way, shape, or form. And I think that I've discovered running, and I obviously love it. It's something I hope to do for a long time. Sooner or later, we will break down. But I truly just believe in the power of positivity, and you can look at anything and look at things negatively or positively. And I frankly just don't have time to be negative. And I think there are a million other ways to be positive, and you can just get creative that way. I feel like I'm creative and I'm positive. And that's what I think is the most important thing. And everything else physically, I want to use my body as much as I can. I mean, she's incredible. But above all, I just feel like it's the power of positivity and getting that out there.
So you described when the run was, let's just say, taken from you. Not that you're a victim, but I'm just going to use those words. It was excruciating. Was there a moment you can share with us where, because we have to have the dark, right? We've got the dark and the light. It's the nature of this world. But can you share with us a moment where, as a super positive person, that it did get really dark, and how did you navigate that?
I think the most interesting moment was sitting in my podiatrist's office, and she was casting my feet for orthotics, and we had just sort of started talking about, she just told me what the surgery entailed and all these things, and I was just in shock, really, and I started to cry. And I thought I just, here she's looking at this grown woman who's crying because, boo-hoo her feet, but I just said, I was like, but running is really important to me. I was like, I wrote a book about running. Like, running is really who I am. And I don't, okay. And that night, I came home, and honestly, I hadn't been drinking for 2 years, just because of health reasons and just wanting to be as pristine as possible. And I came home that night, and I was just like, can I cuss?
Yeah, you can.
Okay. I was just like, fuck it. I was like, fuck all this. Like, I've done everything I can. And my husband, he drinks, but we, he doesn't drink wine, and he ended up buying a bottle of wine for a friend and forgot to bring it to a party. And I was like, sweet, there it is. So I'll have some of that. And I hadn't had anything to drink for real in 2 years, and had a couple glasses of wine. He came home, and I was like, fuck the world. Look at me. I've been doing all this and nothing, none of it's been worth it. Everything had just gone to shit up until then. And then I was like, now I can't even run. I can't, what? I was like, I'm falling apart. This is just, so that moment, and to be honest, I was sort of impressed with myself, because I definitely got buzzed, but I didn't really get too hammered, which was good. And then I woke up the next day, and I kind of felt okay. Hangovers have never been my strong suit, which is another reason why I don't drink. But then I really was myself again, and I was like, okay.
How important is it to have the fuck it moments? How important was it for you to just fully express those emotions that were moving through you? Just like you said to Kat, be frustrated. Mm-hmm. Whatever everybody's saying, pavement's not coming, girl. It's not here yet. How important it is to just fully experience when that shadow self steps in and takes over.
I think it's extremely important, because I think who are we kidding? You can't hide your feelings. You can't hide from the world. It's happening, and just take it in and experience it and walk through it. Get through it any way that you can. But to shy away from things and pretend that it's not happening or cower away, it's that's not going to help anyone. Certainly not going to help yourself. And you might hurt someone else in the process. You could start lying to yourself or lying to other people. So I think those moments are incredibly important. And it's just another way to get to know yourself. For me, I had put up this, I have to be this way, and perfect for so long. And then it was just no, there's no easy answer. There's really no path to any of this. You may want this. You may want to have all this happen, but that's just not the way life works. And screw it, But I think also what was good was to feel that, but just know that that's not really who I am, though. I'm not that person. I can feel that way, but also I can, get it together and then refocus and have another plan.
Yeah, ride it out. Just ride it out. Be good to yourself. Ride it out. It will pass. It's not, like you said, it's not who you are. It's not even close to who you are, but it's very much a part of the human condition. And I think that that's what makes you inspiring, makes you real, is that, it's not all rainbows and unicorns, right? Sometimes the unicorn gets wasted and smashes into the rainbow, and then it's just a total shit show. And that needs to happen. It happens to me. It happens to BJ. And we try and be very open about those things. I've had some super, super dark times that I've just ridden out. You know, sometimes I've napped through them, or glasses and a hat and a long walk of sobbing. That helps too. But to deny them, to try and pretend that they're not there, will just start packing a vault that will eventually open. And typically it opens in a physical manifestation, disease, injury, illness. And so it's so important to let those things move through you. A little technique I use is that I just pretend like I'm translucent. Like, remember Wonder Woman in her invisible plane?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I know, right? So it's like this body is the invisible plane. And I just imagine that energy, even though it feels so slow moving, it's like tar. I just imagine that it's moving through me, and I give it permission. I'm like the arm is up. It's full, like free access, get through there so that I can up level from this, because I really see it as a clearing that you can get up the next day, if the hangover is not too bad, and have clear eyes to move forward. So I really appreciate you sharing that with us. So before running was something that was in and out of your life, you were for sure a runner, and you wrote a book. So can we hear about the book? And I love the backstory of the book too, because that was also another moment that was a little dark and desperate.
Yes, it was. Yeah, so the book you're referring to, Jess, is 35 by 35: A Runner's Quest, available on Amazon, and it's a fantastic read, everyone. As my mom calls it, it's a fun and easy read. So my book, I wrote the book, I published it 3 years ago, self-published it, and it's really the story of how marathons have been the through line of my adult life, how training and racing them from age 21 until 35. At one point or another, no matter what was happening in my life, between starting out, I just graduated from college 3 weeks before my first marathon. And then so charting my path professionally, meeting my husband, starting, our family, my career, all of that, I'd always been training for a marathon through all of it. And it was the one constant I had in my life. And what was interesting about it was the moment that I had, kind of the breakdown, honestly, when I had the idea to write the book, it was March 8th, 2012, and we were on a quote unquote vacation, camping. And I'm really not a big camper, but my husband, we work in visual effects, and he literally, I'm not even joking, he had been working for like 20 days straight, and I really hadn't seen him, and he finally had a day off, like a weekend off, and we just decided to go get out of town and go camp, and it was in these cabins, and it was great. But at the time, I was really just losing who I was, because I did my first Ironman in 2008, fell in love with it, absolutely fell in love with it, and thought, okay, well, maybe I could do this. Maybe I can be a pro. Maybe that'd be kind of cool. So I didn't go back to work, and luckily my husband was very supportive of that, and I just trained full time. And a couple years, got better and better. But then around 2012, it really sort of hit me that wasn't going to happen. Like, I had been doing all this, and I just wasn't that good. And in the meantime, I had been taking on much more of a responsible role with my stepdaughter and really being that person with her. So I couldn't really go back to work full time. But then again, my dream of becoming a professional triathlete was just not happening. And I really was just like, where am I? What am I even doing with my life? And I just kind of cracked. And then my husband came back from fishing, and I just said, okay, I need to go for a run. And he was like, yes, please go for a run. So I did. I went on this run around this lake, and I just had this vision. I was like, okay, at the time I was 32 and a half, and I had run 14 marathons up until that point. And I thought, okay, I'm going to run 35 marathons by the time I turn 35. Like, that's my next thing. I was like, this whole pro triathlete thing isn't really happening, but I love running. I can always do running. They're much more fiscally reasonable to do. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to write a book about it, because I'm sure that there are other women in my position who feel, lack of a better word, trapped. And I need to choose myself in order to be there for everyone else. And from that point on, I really kind of took on the mantra of we need to be selfish in order to be selfless. And at that moment, I thought I will do everything everyone needs of me, but I have to have my running and I have to have my writing. And so from that, but the cool part was at that point I had been I'd been like a 3:30, like 3:40-ish marathoner, and my times just dropped. They just kept dropping and dropping and dropping because I was running so much. I mean, I ran 15 marathons within 2.5 years. And the last one, the 35th actually was horrible. It was San Francisco, and I kind of fell apart. But my 36th, which a little spoiler alert, I won, actually. I won that race. And that was incredible. So to have that.
Were you like, do I need, like, damn, this would have made a good last chapter in the book?
Oh, it is the last chapter. And let me tell you, I literally was like, this is hysterical. I couldn't have made this up. This is so good. I couldn't believe it because the 35th was awful. It was just like such a horrible race because at the time I was actually training for Ironman Lake Tahoe. And I had done Ragnar, like a 6-person Ragnar, like 2 months before. So I was just ragged and had already run like 6 marathons that year. Came to San Francisco and I ran actually, I've been consistently running like 3:23s for like the last 6 marathons. And I ran a 3:47 in San Francisco. Like I hadn't run that slow in years, but I was like, you know what? Like around mile 23, I thought this is perfect. I was like, this is exactly how this should end. It's like, this is a marathon and they are never easy. No matter how many you do, they are never easy. And yeah, this one hurts. And guess what? It should hurt. But all that mattered to me that day was crossing the finish line. And I got my 35th. And then I ended up going to visit my brother in Basel, Switzerland. And they just so happened to have a marathon that weekend. And so I ran it for fun and won it, which was hysterical, but great.
This is so telling of attachment and detachment and having the plan and the story and coming right up to that moment where that goal, you finish the goal is finished. You have your 35th marathon and it's not what you expect, right? It's not your time. You see all this progression. And this is what a lot of athletes see. They see the progression. They're seeing the proof. Like I talked about earlier, they're seeing actual proof. And they start to attach to like, okay, well, now I'm going to get my fastest time just as expected on that last day. And what shows up is a gift, right? A gift. Something that takes you down, again, just a notch to say like, whoa, you're maybe possibly, and I'm just inferring here, but maybe getting too attached. Like the progression was, leading up, but that doesn't mean you're always going to achieve it at the end. And I think that's where most people just like, okay, I did my goal. I'm stopping. This is a sign that I've got a lot of miles in my legs. It's time to pull back a little bit. Yet you go see your brother, probably not as attached. I'm assuming just like, I'm going to go see my brother. There just so happens to be a marathon here. Again, just the weight is maybe just subconsciously lifted off and you go win the race. Did you have any thoughts of like being done after that 35th one? Any inkling of like, this is a sign to just stop for a bit? Or were you always looking to move forward?
I was pretty much always looking to move forward. I think I wasn't sure what that would be exactly. If that would be, at the time, I did think I wasn't going to do Ironmans for a little while. And I was sort of going back and forth. I was like, well, I'll at least do, another marathon. But yeah, that was actually an odd time. It was a weird time to have that huge goal be done. And then it's another one of those, well, now what? Now what do I do? And luckily I had actually the book to write. At the time I was blogging it basically. And so it was pretty much written, but I had to go back and really formulate it, make it into a book and a true story. But that was a really interesting time. And actually that was the end of basically fall of 2014 into 2015. And 2015 was a very difficult time. It was the first time my husband, he was working in Albuquerque for like 6 months. And initially I wasn't going to go. I was, we were going to go back and forth, and it was just, and my stepdaughter had, she was 16 and didn't really need me anymore. I mean, she was driving, and like, it was just, what am I doing? Like that, the book, this is just, I got to figure something out. And I was going to do Ironman Coeur d'Alene. And then, but I was like, no, you know what? I need to just go to Albuquerque. I need to go to Albuquerque, and we need to be together and just figure out our life and put everything else on hold. So I brought my bike with me and I swam a couple times, but I actually started just running a ton and just wanted to get into ultra running. Just wanted to do, a couple, maybe do some ultra marathons and geek out on that. And then I watched, what was it, the Texas, like Ironman Texas on TV, and that was it. I was like, no, I need to do another Ironman. I was like, I have to do at least one more Ironman, and it would have been my 10th. And so I signed up for Ironman Lake Placid that summer, and I ended up doing that in 2016. And that was just another, huge leap change from that.
Would you say it seems to me you are, but like that you have a strong intuition? Because you're getting these hits and then you're acting on them. A lot of people get hits. A lot of people run around the lake and get an inspiration. Oh, I'm going to do this. And then they come back from the run and then they have lunch and then that was the last they've ever heard of that inspiration. So for you, when you get these hits, where do you think they're coming from? The mind or the heart?
I think definitely from the heart. I think there's certain things I've always known that I am. I've always known I'm a writer from birth. I've always loved writing, and I've always been an athlete. And so when I discovered running, I figured out, okay, I don't have to have a team to be an athlete. I can be a runner forever on my own. And I always thought, as long as I have those two things, I'm fine. Like that's my identity. Like if I can hang on to that, I can handle anything else. And so anything else has really been a bonus. But I do think that, when you have those certain hits, sometimes you do follow through and sometimes you don't. But if you keep thinking about it, like the next day or 2 days later, it's like, okay, we need to figure this out and make a plan.
Now, I read, where did I read this? It might have been on your blog or somewhere that Ironman Lake Placid 2016, that was going to be it. 10 Ironmans, get out clean, right? Like 35 marathons, you can still run. The Ironman thing, you're back in it. Like, okay, 10, I'm done. But that wasn't the case.
No, I think that's sort of what I'm calling Taryn 2.0, honestly, because that was so interesting because I went into that race and I was self-coached, and I did pretty well. But the funny thing was I did the swim. The swim was pretty slow. And, but the bike and the run were solid and I felt great on the run. And after that, I just thought, I just think that there's more than this. I mean, I'd long ago let go of being a pro and all of that. And I really didn't, but it really just hit me. This is a lifestyle. You're around that town. And have you guys ever done Lake Placid yet?
Oh yeah, we were there that year too.
Oh, were you there?
Yeah,
okay.
We've both done it a couple times. But yeah, we were living there during that time.
Yeah, so that town, that was the first Ironman I actually ever witnessed because my brother did it in 2004. So that was my first, look-see at the Ironman world. But that weekend, it just hit me like, these are my people. This is just what I want to do with my life. Like if I spend my vacations for the rest of my life doing Ironmans, great, like I'm in. And then that race, there was enough about it positively that made me think there was more in me. There was more that I could give. And I wanted to test that out. And so a few weeks later, I contacted my old coach, Hillary, and I just said, hey, do you or anyone on your crew, any of your other coaches, possibly have any room? Because I think I want to just try this out. I think I want to push myself a little bit more and see if there's anything else in there, just to improve. And luckily she said, yeah. She's like, let's go again. And she took me on herself, and I did improve, which is pretty cool.
You were slated to do Ironman Boulder this year, and between the foot teaching you detachment, you also had an experience at you were there. You're doing like IGTV from the hotel room, like, okay, I just went for my run, tomorrow, this and that. And then the next video is like a minute long, which is the best video ever because it's raw and it's emotional and it's you letting go of the race because you were sick.
You know what's adorable about that? Real quick anecdote. My dad couldn't even watch that video. He's like, it was just too sad. And I did it in one take, which I was proud of myself. I was like, I just have to do this in one take. It was, talk about intuition, I think, honestly. I didn't listen to my intuition with that race and how I felt going into it. And talk about expectations. I did Kona last year, and then I ran the New York Marathon 3 weeks later. And I had come off of both those races. I was pretty disappointed with actually how Kona went. Really shouldn't have been, but I just kind of was. And I felt like there's so much more to this. I was like, I'm going to give every single thing I have, every ounce of my being for the first 6 months of 2019 to prep for Boulder. So when I get to Boulder, I'm my ultimate self. And everything was pretty much going the way that it should have been. Although ironically, like on January 1st, I messed up one of my workouts. Like my coach had written this workout and I just like misread it and did it wrong. And I thought, wow, this isn't really a good kickoff to the year. But so come end of May, I had a huge build and a fantastic build into the race. And it just kind of felt a little tickle in my throat. And I really thought that, okay, that'll pass. And it didn't. And then it kind of got a little bit worse. But when I got to Boulder, it just exploded. And it was a real, the Saturday before the race, I went out for a little run, went for a little, and then did a little hour ride. And I came back to my hotel room and I have not had a fever for like 15 years. And it was one of those moments where my body and I said it out loud when my younger sister was with me. And I said it out loud to her. I was like, I don't really want to say how I'm really feeling out loud. It's like, what is that? Is that weakness? Or, I don't want to say it, but I feel really bad. And then after that, I just my temperature just shot up to the roof and I had a huge fever and it was like, okay, I really need to listen to this. And luckily I actually decided not to race hours before it got really bad because when I woke up on Sunday morning, I honestly had no remorse about missing the race. I was so sick and I just thought, there's no way in the world I can swim right now. And I just have to get better and I have to be able to breathe again. And I think that's the thing too, is you really appreciate little things like that because you can be as strong physically and as possible, but if you don't have air in your lungs, can't really do a whole lot. So that was a big thing for it. That just forced me. It forced me to, what I should have done is listen to my intuition. And instead I listened to my ambition. I just really was like, I'm going to go. Because I probably shouldn't have gone from sea level to altitude. Even though Boulder's not that high, that probably did not do me any favors, but with the lung condition. But I just was like, no, I'm going to go. I'm going to see what I will go as far as I can. And I didn't race.
Do you have any remorse for the 6 months of fitness that you built up? Like you were excited to go, and I have been there. That's why I can relate to this so well. Your game is on, right? And you're hitting workouts, nailing it, getting fit, getting strong, putting everything into this. Day comes, doesn't happen. What's your mindset in terms of, is this all for nothing? Like, what is this all for? Like, what was this all for? And can you quickly turn that into, oh, this is exactly what's supposed to happen. This is such a great opportunity for me to learn detachment. And everything isn't for, again, the 35th marathon. This isn't about attaching to that end result. It's about doing the work for the sake of the work. And maybe the reward isn't what you think it is. Maybe it's something else. Was there a lesson in there for you?
There was, but not for a little while. I have to say, this one took me a minute, and this is, I think, a time when it was really helpful for me to have an amazing coach and someone who had, Hillary's been through everything herself and also has coached, people through all kinds of things. So to have someone on that level really understand, because it was a sense, that was the part that was just so sad to me. Literally, that's just the best word I can think about. It was sad. I had put in so much time and effort and had made changes. I just made sacrifices at home, things just to make sure that I was in such great shape for Boulder. And then just to not even race. It's one thing to show up and not do well or not do as well as you think, but to just not even race and not be like, it's like, what? Like, that is crazy. Like, why did that happen? Why did that happen? So there were definitely a couple weeks of that. And then I started to realize that, like, okay, there's a reason for this. The storyteller in me was like, well, this makes my story a little bit better. There's a twist. There's some conflict. Woohoo! But I certainly would not have asked for that, and I really wish that didn't happen. But I do think in the grand scheme of things, I also think there's a reason for it. I think that I didn't know really what was going on with my foot at the time, and I think I might have actually hurt it pretty badly if I would have run on it without the protection of orthotics or without some things that I know now. So I think that ultimately it was a blessing, but at the time it took me a minute to get over it.
What's something that allowed you to gain that perspective for someone in the same situation? Because it happens often. I think I remember Ireland just happening, and I think 1,000 people did not start. And I'm assuming because of the conditions, a lot of it. But I think in Ironman races, you see a lot of DNSs. Like a lot of things can happen leading into a race. When you get there fully trained, fully healthy, it's you should be grateful for that. So what can you share with anyone who may be experiencing something similar?
I would say that it's really, what I learned honestly is that it's not about the race. None of this is about the actual race that you show up to or any of that. I mean, first of all, there's always another race you can do for sure. But truly, we do all this to be, personally, I do all this to be strong, to be physically and mentally and emotionally a strong person, to know that I can outrun someone if I need to, maybe, or just feel good about myself and feel like I'm doing as much with my life as I possibly can. I'm making my body as strong as possible, as much as I can. And yeah, it's a miracle that we show up to an Ironman and everything works. That like you don't have a mechanical, or you forget a shoe, or I mean, there's so many things that can go wrong in a triathlon and in an iron distance triathlon. The fact that anyone makes it through from point A to point B, start to finish, that is a true blessing. And that's for sure one of the biggest things I've taken away is that, and it's all of the training up until that point. I mean, and honestly, there were a couple workouts Hillary's famous for that I did complete, and I thought that's enough. The fact that I even did that, those were harder really than the race itself. That the race is just gravy. That it's like, there will be another one. Everything happens for a reason, and you just have to roll with it.
We're all guilty of glossing over details in life that we could spend so much more time being grateful for. We're all guilty of this. I was reading in the Yoga Sutras this morning at like 4:00 in the morning when I got up to go for my run. And it was talking about non-stealing, which is one of the ethical principles of yoga. And so we think like, okay, like, all those bras I ripped off from Victoria's Secret when I was in high school. Sorry, Victoria's Secret, but I did. Shouldn't have done that. But it actually talks about the oxygen we breathe and how it's not ours. It's this atmosphere, and it's the Earth's. And so we should hold every breath with reverence. Every breath is, not to overuse it, a gift. It really is. The way I look at it, it's the go-ahead to live for another moment. That's what I get. And I loved that. I was like, gosh, I really don't think I've ever thought of that. Like, it's not my air. And we gloss over all of these fine details that are so profound in allowing us to live another day, that when something like an Ironman or an injury or a delayed race start or the cancellation of a swim derails us so tragically, we feel like it's the end of the world, but there are so many lessons in there. And I think that it kind of knocks us off our pedestal a little bit and say, hey, you're still human. Now you need to feel this so that you can restore your gratitude. Because when you start running, 20 miles again, how grateful are you going to be for that? Because you will. You'll get to the other side of what you're in right now, for sure. So I know that you're gathering up this fitness for another Ironman. So what's next?
Yes, we have heading to Madison. Going to do Ironman Wisconsin on
and you're
September
doing
8th.
A pretty quick ramp up.
Yes. Yeah, that's what's so interesting. I kind of like, this is a little quick. But I'm as I wrote my blog this morning, I'm a firm believer in muscle memory. And I do think that, again, what you're talking about, I built up all this fitness. And that's one thing, Hillary said when Boulder didn't happen, is that it's not like that really just goes away. We do have, those are still stored in there. So yeah, tapping into that, it should be an adventure. But I'm certainly going into this race to Madison with not at all huge expectations. I mean, I want to go in and I want to enjoy it. I want to be healthy. I want to enjoy the day. It's such an amazing place to race. And, everything, I really just see my life, or all of our lives, as a story. And as a storyteller, like, there's an opportunity for it all. And just to see things that way, and, this just makes things that much more interesting. But it is funny. It's like when I mentioned to Hillary a couple weeks ago, after my foot started feeling better, I was like, let's go. Let's see if I can do Madison. And I love that she was like, yeah, let's, okay. Yeah. And so, and I have complete faith in her. She has gotten me and all of her athletes to the starting line in such amazing shape and ready to go. And I think that no matter what, I'll be able to enjoy the day one way or the other. It might be longer than usual, maybe not, but I'm looking forward to it.
And it's an amazing course. It's an amazing finish line coming down with the Capitol in the background. And yeah, it's a challenging bike, but any Ironman distance race is challenging. But I really like that run. It's a challenging run, but it's very spectator friendly. I felt like there was a lot of support out there the whole time. So have you done that one before?
I did that in 2013. In fact, kind of a little fun fact, the last time I ran it was September 8th, 2013. And this year it's September 8th. So,
ooh, numbers game. Let's see what happens.
I think your no expectations is going to serve you very well, because there was some failed expectations from Kona. There was failed expectations from Boulder. So I feel like the universe is going, hey, Taryn, you listening? Are you listening? You got to drop those expectations. Have your goals, but it's that attachment that causes our suffering. The attachment's what causes our suffering. Let's switch gears a little bit, because I want to bring in the fact that you are a vegan athlete, plant-based athlete. So how did you swing over to the plant side of things?
So I've actually been a vegetarian since December 26, 2002. I'm a big date person. I know all kinds of dates. So that was a very impactful day, but I've only been a vegan now for maybe 2.5 years. And I think that really, it was more education. I think just coming over and just reading. I mean, I don't think I'm similar to a lot of vegetarians where cheese is the last to go, dairy is the last to go. And then once I just read more about that and was like, oh, okay, well then that's easy. I can easily do that. And I certainly have felt the benefits of being, training all the time. I think recovery is a huge benefit to being a vegan. I do not feel, besides just being, muscle soreness, lethargic, really. My diet is clean. And so I know exactly what is going in. And I think that is huge. I feel good about it. And yeah, I can't imagine doing any of this. In fact, I don't think I've ever run, the first marathon I ran in 2001 was the only one that I ran when I was, a meat eater, I guess. But everything since then, I've been a vegetarian or vegan.
What kind of nutrition do you use on the bike? Because we get that question a lot, or during racing and training as a vegan athlete.
I'm a big Picky Bars person, big Picky Bar fan. So as far as actual food, I use Picky Bars. Bobo's lemon bars are just delicious. And lots of goose. So I really just stick with and then Vega. I use Vega. They're Vega and Noon, but their hydrator and their stuff is great on the bike. But mainly for nutrition, I just stick with Blocks, Noon, Picky Bars.
And that suits you fine? No nutrition issues? Pretty good?
It does, yeah. So far, so good. That's actually a big thing. When I came back around this, when I started working with Hillary again in 2016, nutrition was I just never ate enough when I was biking, and it's interesting. I have so many friends who are real deal runners, and we don't eat enough and don't fuel enough, and it was like revolutionary just to constantly taking calories on time and taking more, and I was like, oh wow. So that's been a huge game changer for me.
And you're talking calories just during training or in your everyday normal diet?
That has been mainly during training, but I feel like as far as everyday life this past year, I've really gotten much better at is eating more and better and having more quality calories coming in. That's something I think also I just sort of let that go and just ate when I felt good. But now it's much more, no, I need to eat more.
I feel like that's a common thread that we see a lot too is for some reason, there's numerous reasons, the amount of calories you take in during training seems to not be enough. Yet we're pushing our bodies to stress the body to stimulate fitness. So when we rest, we gain that fitness. But yet we shy away from adding calories, and I'm guilty of it myself too. And I think it's a mindful thing mostly. And I can recall on the race just yesterday or Sunday, like in the run, just wanting to get the run done and not taking in what I knew I needed. Like I could feel that overall level like sinking down. And I was able to quickly shift gears, like taking a goo, grab some cola. What do you think it is? Like what, in your opinion, what do you feel is the reason we're not consuming enough. We don't know that we need more, or we're just not feeling it. It's uncomfortable to put fuel in the body while we're training. What's your take?
I think I'm tied between feeling uncomfortable, like if you maybe what you've eaten, it makes, your stomach, twist and turn. GI distress is no fun. I mean, I definitely dealt with that years ago, and, in marathoning, my 4th marathon, had a pasta dinner the night before. Never again will I do that. So learning those lessons. But I think during the race, I know for me for sure, during the race, I need to look at the clock. I need to look at my miles and make sure that I take them just regimented, because I don't think I need it sometimes. I feel like, no, I feel good. Like, I don't need a goo yet, but it's like, no, you do. You just have to make sure to stay on top of that, because I think your mind can go someplace else, but you need to constantly connect the two with your body and be fueling.
How many are you targeting a certain amount of calories every hour? Let's talk Ironman specific. Like for Wisconsin, will you be targeting a certain amount of calories per hour?
I think it's around like 250 or 300 an hour. Yeah, I think it's like 300. And it's funny, Picky Bars changed their ingredients a little while ago, or their recipe a little while ago, and their bars used to be 200, so it was really easy. It was just 200, one Picky Bar and then a gel. But now it's like they're like 180 or 190, which is not that big of a deal, but a little bit of that. But basically, yeah, about 300.
Yeah, that's what I do, and I've always been one to really put a lot of importance on that last aid station. Like, as much as I've wanted to skip it, I always stop. I'm always taking in my nutrition to the end. And like, just even this morning, the last 10 minutes of my run was like a tempo effort. And I could hear I had water in my bladder. And I was thinking, well, I'll just push it and I'll drink when I get to the car. And I'm like, no, because it's not about these 10 minutes. It's about, are you going to be hydrated after the workout? Are you going, you've got the interview with Taryn today. Like, are you going to be topped off? Are you going to be, so I'm always thinking about, in the moment, feeling the moment, but not forgetting what I need to fuel my recovery. I'm always thinking about fueling the recovery. And even at those last aid stations in a race, it's now you're starting to think about the body after the race, because you want to recover. And I 100% agree with you that that's one of the biggest benefits that we've seen from eating a plant-based diet. I mean, really a vegan diet, is the recovery is unbelievable. And what I love about your story is that I think maybe like 5-ish years ago and stuff, there was kind of this like, it's like, oh, if you eat a vegan diet, it's the answer to everything. You're never going to get sick. You're never going to get injured. And that's crap. That's total crap. You are going to probably get a cold at some point. You may have a sore toe. Like, it's not the, it's the magic bullet, and then it's not the magic bullet. Like, life is still life, but it is a high vibrational way to eat. It's a very anti-inflammatory way to eat. And as an athlete, I think recovery is so important, because we can get back out there and start training quicker. So yeah, I think about 250 to 300 calories is a really nice number to be going after. And I think that some athletes might be like, whoa, I don't take in. That's usually the feedback we get, is like, whoa, I'm not taking in that much. So when before you became more conscious about your calories, what do you think you were taking in to fuel your Ironmans?
Wow, not a lot. I think I had, because I would eat. I would eat when I felt like I needed it, but certainly not. Maybe a couple goos during a long run, maybe some blocks. But during a race, I would eat more. I think back then I ate like some Cliff Bars on the bike, and that was not good. So I think that's, you eat either too much of something, and then when you get to, maybe not drinking enough and feeling that. So that's the thing too, as I've learned, is that you have to train like you're going to race. You have to eat like you're going to race, because you do not want to jar your system, and you're already dealing with a different sort of anxiety on the day, and your body's already kind of going haywire. It's like the food, it should be as just leveled out as possible. And I think that's what you're saying too, about like starting your recovery or getting those aid stations near the end. That's huge. And I think that by consistently being almost in triathlon training all the time, I always think about the next. Just, okay, I'm doing this here, but I have a run later, or I have a swim later, or tomorrow even, and always have to think about that, because they're all connected. You might have, or it's like, I need to eat well now because I'm going to be sleeping later. And like, I want to make sure, you feel good and hydrated for that. So I think that's the key, is not really, there is no true finish line with any of this. It's like, it's always just like constantly maintaining it, figuring stuff out and getting in a routine in a sense.
What's your pre-race go-to?
That's changed over the years. So for a long time, I was a big pancake eater night before, but I think I made too much. So now actually I try to go and get like the biggest yam sweet potato. There's such a controversy. I feel like if you say sweet potatoes, people are like, no, they're really yams. So anyway, large yam, and then almonds, like raw almonds, salt and pepper balsamic, olive oil, and like a little, and I usually have like a green juice that day. So I won't really have greens with dinner, but I'll have like a green juice that day earlier in the day. And then some dark chocolate that night, cup of tea, yogi bedtime tea with the noon sleepy time deal. That's pretty much it.
Do you cut fiber out like prior to, like, I know you have a green juice, which is actually a super smart idea because you're getting all the benefit, but you're not getting the fiber. So do you take your fiber down like for an Ironman? Let's say the Ironman's on Sunday. Would you start taking fiber down like midday Friday?
Probably. I try to keep it as just the same as like my diet the same all the time anyway, though. I try not to make too many changes. Like I would eat like that sweet potato deal before a long run or a long ride. So I try to keep it all pretty consistent. But depending on where I am, if I'm traveling, like you try to get as much stuff that's normal anywhere you are. But I usually just keep it as streamlined and normal as possible.
All right. And in wrapping this up, so you've been an athlete, lifelong athlete, marathoner, Ironman. Actually, before we wrap this up, you had, I watched a recent video of yours and you were talking about still going for your pro card. Is that still something on the table? You're like, God, I thought I was going to get through this interview without her saying that.
Maybe it is, Jess. Maybe it is. One thing I've learned recently is women are pretty hardcore, and we are very strong, and we keep getting stronger. And for a long time, I really just thought, like, again, like the title of my book, 35 by 35, I really just thought that like there's an end and this has to stop, or like, okay, we'll be fast at a certain point and then things will start to go downhill. And what I've noticed is that's not the case. I've been getting stronger and stronger and stronger every year. And also what I just saw with Kat, Kat just turned 50 years old and absolutely crushed it in Ultraman. So I'm actually writing my second book right now, and the title is Finally by 40, I'm Just Getting Started. Because I think whether or not, if I get my pro card, that would be a miracle. I would have to get 1, 2, 3 in the amateurs, and there are some fast girls out there, and good for them. Because I strongly am behind the movement of getting more women to step up and take their pro card. I think that is a great message to send to this next generation, to keep triathlon vibrant, to keep women striving for something to be better at. And I know that the money is not there, but I think that it can be, and that even still, why not try to be your best? And then when you are your best, if you're that good, race against your caliber. So I'm definitely not someone who just goes to races and like wins all the time and is just sort of, taking that spot. But because if I was that good, I've gotten, second place a few times in my age group. But if I did get 1, 2, 3, like I would certainly take my pro card. And even if it's, I show up to a race, next year and I'm minutes behind everyone in the swim in the pro field, I would definitely do it, because that'd be an incredible opportunity, an amazing experience. Then again, if that doesn't happen, because it hasn't happened in the last 11 years, I am perfectly fine with that. But I do think that as things are progressing, I do think I will get stronger. And if that happens at a race this year, next year, whatever, like that'd be incredible to take that opportunity and like race a few races as a pro for a year, and hopefully be like, yeah, come on out, ladies. Like, why not? Give this a whirl. And so it's out there, but I am not putting the pressure on myself like I did in Boulder to have to do it, because I think my goal really this year was to get my pro card before I turned 40, and that's just ridiculous. If it happens, awesome. If it happens before I turn 40, because Wisconsin's actually a week before my birthday, but if it happens next year and never at all, that's okay.
sounds like you're starting to let go of the attachment to expectations. So as a lifelong athlete, marathoner, Ironman triathlete, possibly future pro, what do you have to say to those who are just starting out, or maybe they're training for their first Ironman? And, I remember that like, oh my God, am I going to get to the finish? I must get to the finish. What wisdom do you have to share about expectations, how they serve you and how they can create suffering in your life?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I would say is, especially for these long distance events, is that just keep going, keep trying, keep churning away. I mean, there are, these natural athletes that get out there and just do great their first time out. But for most of us, it takes a lot of time. I'm certainly one of those athletes who I believe that I'm naturally athletic and coordinated. But like I mentioned, I didn't really start to become a really good runner, a good marathoner until my 24th. And then I didn't get to really good times until last year in New York. And that was my 52nd marathon. So I believe in consistency and just keep chipping away and keep learning. We can learn every single day from every training session we do, certainly every race that we have, that we compete at. Be open to everyone, talk to people in transition, give, people have questions, answer questions, just, be open to the environment. And it's such an interesting community, I think, runners and triathletes, because we're all pretty driven, and definitely in this aspect of our life, but otherwise too, and willing to put ourselves out there and willing to hurt and to feel, really feel our bodies. And I think that is tremendous, especially in this world today, where we all need a reason to get a way to get stress out positively. And not many people know how to figure that out. And I think if we're people that can figure out how to releasing our stress in a positive way, that is a huge gift. And that is something that we can help out other people to do as well and bring them in the fold. The more athletes, the more participants we have, the better. And we can cheer each other on and also outrun them. I mean, there's nothing, competition is okay. So.
Nothing wrong with being number one.
That's right.
So people are digging and loving what your vibe is. How can people follow you? Like, where's the best place to follow you? Because I know you keep an active blog and IG station. So yeah, where can we stay tuned?
Yes. So on Instagram and Twitter, I'm at TP Spates. And then my website is TarynSpates.com. So I have a weekly blog I post every Tuesday, which you can go to my website and it's there every Tuesday. You can also sign up for my weekly newsletter, so you get it in email form that comes out every Tuesday. And then on every Friday, I shoot my Taryn's Triathlon Time on Instagram TV. So that's also all on Instagram. And you can also email me if you want to at Taryn@TarynSpates.com. We'll just get the conversation going.
And when's that book coming out?
Ooh, good question, BJ. Well, as you can tell, the story is evolving. So
that you're living the story right now.
We're living it right now. I'm constantly taking notes. It's funny. I have a pretty good memory. So when I do a lot of these, I just remember this stuff. And so it's in the works. In the works.
All right. Thank you, Taryn.
Thank you.